Hello and welcome into another episode of The Hard Fowl. I'm your host, Pearson Fowler. With me, as always, Collyn Taylor, breaking down everything in the world of South Carolina men's basketball. In this case, a very disappointing loss. I feel like I've started the last three of these podcasts with an exasperated sigh, but on Saturday, South Carolina dropped a really, really awful game against Tennessee, 56-55, up in Knoxville, a game that South Carolina was an underdog, a game that would have been really nice if South Carolina could have won it, so it seems weird to sit here talking about how bad a loss it was, but as we get into exactly how they lost, the manner in which they lost, and it being a continuation of a really disappointing trend for South Carolina this season, I think it's safe to say that this is one of the more disappointing losses of the season.
Yeah, and I think that on the surface when you're like, oh, they lost a road game to Tennessee by 1 point, a team that's going to be in the vying for a postseason spot, you're like, okay, well, on the surface that's not bad, but when you go back and look and say they had a chance to win late, they missed 11 threes, they missed 9 free throws, then you look back and say this is a very winnable game that South Carolina could have gone into Tennessee and beaten a team that's been one of the best 3 teams in the SEC the last 2 or 3 years, and I think that's got to hurt this team. You could kind of sense that it hurt a little bit from talking to Frank after the game and talking to some of the players that they kind of realized the chance they missed, because now instead of maybe a 2-3 start, you're looking at a 1-4, if not a 0-5 to begin SEC play when you start to extrapolate everything.
There were a lot of reasons that Carolina lost this game. Let's start with this, because this is the one that's least interesting to talk about. It's very cut and dry. It's been a problem all season long. And in Frank's estimation, after the game, he thinks this is the 4th win that South Carolina has been cost because of poor free throw shooting. 13 of 22, including, was it 4 of 11 in the second half, 4 of 12, something like that. Terrible. There's no answer.
Yeah, and it's not like they're missing free throws in, with 12 minutes to go in the first half. It's not like those are points you can make up. But there were a few times where they got fouled with the chance to tie or take the lead and made 1 of 2 or missed both. I think there was a time where Keyshawn Bryant missed 2 in a row that would have tied the game. And then obviously A.J. Lawson misses his dunk and whatnot. But these are big moments late in games, and you're not in the SEC. It's so wide open this year that you're going to be in close games late with good teams that can boost a resume. And if you can't hit free throws, then teams are going to know who to foul and who not to foul. And it's a problem. I don't know how to fix it other than guys have to go in and get shots. But I will say it's a lot different in practice just going and hitting 100 free throws. You could feel great doing it, but when you're going full speed, you're gassed in the second half, and you just got laid out by a 6'9", 250-pound power forward, it's hard to pop up and go shoot 2 free throws. So I don't know what they do to fix it. At this point, it's just one of those things. I think what they are in terms of free throw shooting. I don't know how much better it's going to get this year, but this is a problem, and I think you're going to start to see it rear its head a little bit more as you get deeper into SEC play and you start playing these close games, whether that's all of these teams are so close together that no team really, you have probably 10 games that are going to come down to the last 4 minutes. The first 2 SEC games did. So it's not crazy to think these next 16 won't. So yeah, you're going to have to start hitting free throws, and I don't know if this team's really necessarily equipped to do that right now.
No, we talked about it a little bit earlier in the season when this, I think, first started to be a problem for South Carolina. I guess it's always been a problem, but when we first realized that it might be a real issue,
yeah.
we both kind of are on the same page, that that's not something that really gets better over the course of the season. One of the other things that you mentioned that I think is maybe even more problematic about it for South Carolina is, they do have guys that are really, really bad free throw shooters, but the misses are coming from everywhere. Mike Kotsar, 3 of 5. Keyshawn Bryant, 0 of 3. Lawson and Bolden actually did hit all of theirs. They're Carolina's most reliable free throw shooters, but as we're going to talk about in a minute, it's
they
not
don't
always
get to the line. Yeah.
Well, they don't get to the line, and it's not always a given that they're going to be in the game towards the end. Trey Hannibal, 3 of 4, and Jermaine Couisnard, who statistically was one of the better free throw shooters on the team coming into the game, goes just 1 of 4. So it's all guys missing everywhere. If you're the other team, it's like, take your pick, foul whoever the heck you want if you want to put Carolina at the line.
At this point,
which is really unfortunate, but that really is. It's kind of funny too, because you go back to the Florida game and Carolina shot free throws very well. Unfortunately for Carolina, that was not a game that came down to their free throw shooting. Now, you can say the only reason they were in the game as long as they were is because they made enough of their free throws on the front end, 14 of their first 15 or 13 of their first 14, whatever that number was. But, the one good free throw shooting performance they get ends up not really mattering. You switch that with Tennessee, they still lose the Florida game. They probably win this Tennessee game.
Yeah, and you need anything to go right for you at this point offensively. It's been a pretty big rut these last 3 games. You haven't scored over 70 points after scoring 70 against Virginia, and you just haven't shot the ball well, and that's a problem. And when you're not shooting the ball well, you need other things to work in your favor. You need offensive rebound, which they did better against Tennessee. You need to hit your free throws. You need to kind of create those open court opportunities, and they're not doing enough of that and converting enough of that to give themselves a great chance to win late. And they did against Tennessee to a degree, but you didn't against Stetson, and you didn't against Florida, and you saw how those games turned out. So there's a lot of questions to be answered, a lot of answers to be found, and right now I'm not sure how close this team is. Frank he's adamant that they're close, said so in his press conference yesterday, but until they kind of figure some things out, I don't know how close they are.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think you have to agree with him that they are close. I mean,
yeah, you can see the flashes of it.
2 free throws, 1 more made bucket, 1 single made bucket from A.J. Lawson and Jerry Bolden, and you can't just do the math like that and say, oh, well, that accounts for the 2 points or whatever, because then that comes somewhere and the rest of the game changes. But I think the reason this hurts so much for South Carolina, like you mentioned, they're not a good shooting team right now. They're a bad half-court offense. They didn't shoot well, 32.8% from the floor, 20 of 61, just 15%, 2 of 13 from 3. Obviously, we talked about their woes at the free throw line. But look at the other side. Look what they did defensively. Now, this is not a great Tennessee team, so it's not like their defensive performance, it's not like Carolina's defensive performance is some incredible defensive feat, but they hold Tennessee to just under 26% from the field, 14 of 54, 19% from 3, 6 of 31. Carolina was content to let Tennessee bomb away, and that was, fortunately the right call this time because they weren't hitting them. Now, Tennessee did make their free throws, 22 of their 28, but Carolina had a bad shooting performance, and Tennessee's was significantly worse, and Carolina still loses this game.
Yeah, and I think that you look at it and say this is probably your best, outside of Clemson, your best defensive performance of the year. You forced a lot of turnovers. You did you rebounded the ball well. You did all the things that you needed to do to beat Tennessee, except foul. They fouled a little bit too much. Frank even said that. But that's what I think is so frustrating, is because you can't get – the offense looked better against Florida, but the defense didn't. And then against Tennessee, the defense looked really good and the offense didn't. So you're not getting the same level of play on both sides of the court night in and night out. And I think that's the frustrating part for this team.
And it flies directly in the face of what we thought was the problem earlier this season and what Frank has said. And I mean, it does seem to be the case, but it's weird because he will complain that South Carolina plays poor offensively when they play poor defensively. Like, bad defense leads to bad offense and vice versa. And yet we keep getting these outlier performances. Again, a good offensive performance against Florida, but they're not able to get any stops, and then the opposite against Tennessee. So I don't know if this is like a more specific matchup problem in these last 2 games for Carolina, but you would think that the good defensive performance against Tennessee, especially as you mentioned, forcing a lot of turnovers, including 12 steals. Yeah. If there's one thing, the Clemson game was a really good defensive performance. They forced a lot of turnovers, but a lot of those turnovers were dead ball. When South Carolina forces live ball turnovers, they're deadly. They 12 steals. That's a lot of live ball opportunities, a lot of transition opportunities that they were creating. And, they were able to generate offense from it. They won I don't remember the margin off the top of my head. I think you have it. They have, they won the transition point margin, or the fast break point margin.
7-3.
Yeah, okay, so not significant anyway. Yeah. But, you're creating those opportunities that should lead to more offense, and it just wasn't there on Saturday.
Yeah, and you can create all the loose balls you want to, and you can create all these transition opportunities, but when you're 10 of 27 on layups in that game, you're just not converting, and that's the problem. I think A.J. Lawson missed a wide-open dunk. He came flying in transition, and it would have tied the game late.
Yeah,
and
just back iron.
Yeah, back ironed it, and they were 2 for 3 on dunks. So combined, they were 12 of 30 on layups or dunks. And
12 of 30.
Yeah.
And I don't know off the top of my head. I'm thinking I just think in terms of NBA, because I honestly watch a lot more NBA than college basketball, so I don't know how the college stats compare to this, but I think around average for a team on those kinds of shots is about 70%.
Yeah, and you think even if you shoot 60%, if you're South Carolina, you win this game. if you make 3 more and shoot 50%, you feel good about your chances to win that game. So they're creating the opportunities they need to win, which is those loose ball fouls, or loose ball turnovers, with open court opportunities to get, AJ Lawson, Keyshawn Bryant running in transition, and they're just not converting. And whether that's a mental thing, whether that's a physical thing, is kind of what they're trying to figure out right now.
If my math is correct, which is, usually questionable, but I think 11 of 39, South Carolina starting 5 shooting from the floor.
That sounds about right. I mean, you went
7 of 11 from Kotsar, 4 of 12 from Bryant, which means 0 for 4 Minaya, 0 for 7 Lawson, 0 for 5 Bolden. I think, theoretically, this is South Carolina's best starting lineup. But for 3 games in a row now, this has not been South Carolina's best lineup.
No.
Jair Bolden played fewer minutes than T.J. Moss off the bench, then Jermaine Couisnard off the bench, played exactly as many minutes as Trey Hannibal. So, who exactly is starting, I think, doesn't matter as much as who finishes the game and who plays the most minutes. But do we see a shakeup before Wednesday for Kentucky in terms of the starting lineup?
I don't know for certain you see a change, but the way Frank Martin talked in his Monday press conference, it sounds like Jermaine Couisnard is going to get a lot of point guard minutes.
As he should.
Yeah, no, rightfully so. I was really impressed with them putting the ball in his hands against Tennessee and him playing pretty well. Needs to be a little bit more efficient, was just 6 of 17 from the field, but got downhill, got to the line, was pretty fearless, and gives this team some personality. So I really liked that. They trotted another lineup out that I really, really liked. It was Trey Hannibal at the 1, Couisnard at the 2, Lawson at the wing, and then Minaya at the 4, Kotsar at the 5. And I think that gives you a lot. Now, you can obviously switch Minaya for Brian if you want to, depending on what you want out there, but I think that gives you a lot too. And I think that you're starting to see guys fall into roles. And right now, Couisnard could be that combo guard you need. Trey Hannibal's played well. Whether he plays or not is still kind of up in the air at times. But I think A.J. Lawson plays better when he doesn't have to be the sole primary playmaker and run an offense. He's better when the offense is not run through him, but he gets his shots.
Yep.
Whereas a guy like a Hannibal or a Couisnard is better when he's creating for others, and then that translates to more offense for him.
Yeah, and I've been expecting that to be the case, and I think the reality, I just have to accept it. 15 games into the season, I thought that A.J. Lawson I thought he was going to be the 2 or the 3, and I thought they were going to run the offense through him, and I thought that was going to be good, but it's clearly not. He's not aggressive enough. He doesn't attack enough. And when he does, and I don't know if this is just him or if this is, just a bad start to his season, but he's just not good enough around the rim. He's not a dynamic enough finisher. We see it in spurts, but it's not there consistently enough for him to be someone that you want the ball to be in his hands all the time. The 3 guys that I feel the best about at any given time on this team are Mike Kotsar, obviously, Carolina's MVP this season.
Could you imagine saying that 3 months ago?
No. Well, I mean, if I had said that 3 months ago, I would have thought this team would be like 13-2.
Yeah. When you're expecting 10-6, whatever he's averaging,
right.
It's amazing.
It's
good for Mike.
It's house money.
Yeah.
It's great for Carolina, except it's not, which is the confusing part. Hannibal, obviously, I love, and just the energy. I think off the bench, he and Couisnard, Hannibal, Couisnard, Kotsar are the 3 guys that I feel best about at any given time. Obviously, Hannibal and Couisnard coming off the bench, and for Couisnard, it was a question whether or not he was even going to be able to play, how much he was going to be able to play. He did play 24 minutes, obviously dealing with his back spasms. He missed the Florida game, and you wonder how much of a difference that would have made because you said, not very efficient, just 6 of 17 from the floor, 2 of 7 from 3. His first 2 shots were made 3-pointers.
He was the only player to make a 3 yesterday, or what was that, Saturday?
Yeah.
Only player.
Just disgusting.
The other team, everybody else went 2 of 11 or 0 of 11.
And he hit both threes within probably the first 5 minutes of the game.
Yeah, bang bang. He came in, hit 2 threes, bang bang, got him within
nothing else.
Yeah, got him
for the rest of the game. But his mentality, his attack mentality, he continued to get to the rim. Let's see, what did he shoot from the line? I don't have it right in front of me because I have it on my iPad and the stat box is condensed.
I think it was 1 for 4.
Yeah, that's right. 1 for 4.
Yeah, 1 for 4 from the line, but he hauled in 2 rebounds, had 2 assists, 3 steals. I mean, he's just productive for you.
He was active, and again, it's sort of that aggression and that attack mentality that we've talked about. South Carolina's lacking because they don't have leadership, which is why I thought it was so important for Hannibal to be getting in the game because he brought that. He still brings it defensively, and I thought he had another really solid game. He had 5 points, he had 3 rebounds. I think he had a couple turnovers. Didn't shoot. I mean, he shot 1 of 3, so it's fine, 13 minutes or whatever. But his defensive play just continues to be so impressive. There was one play where he got put in pick and roll. South Carolina switched it, and then they kind of like tagged out, and Hannibal, came back out to whoever the ball handler was. The guy starts driving. He drives into him. He does a great job of not fouling, and then as he's sort of falling out of bounds, is able to swat down and hit the ball not only out of, I don't even remember who it was. It might have been Vescovi.
I remember,
out of Vescovi's hands, and not only that, but knocks it off of his leg, and it's a turnover for Florida. And it's like, I think that's the only guy on this team that can make that play.
Yeah,
maybe Mike Kotsar.
And he's so productive, and he is just, I mean, we've said it probably 800 times on this podcast, but he's so productive. He's such a spark plug. It's hard to keep him out of the lineup, whether that's off the bench or what, but he's so good. Now, granted, we're not in practice every day, and I keep saying that, but we're not in practice. We don't really know what he's like on a day in and day out basis. We just see when the lights come on. But the dude's a gamer when he's out there, he just produces, and he turns the ball over a little bit too much, but his help defense is pretty good. He's so physical at the point of attack. He and Jermaine Coustard are probably your two most physical guards right now, and that's what Frank is looking for. So as the season goes on, and Frank talked a lot about personality yesterday in his press conference, that as the season goes on, I think as they give him more of that, the more minutes they're going to see in games.
You pointed this out in your write-up on GamecockCentral.com. If someone had walked into this room here in the 107.5 The Game podcast studio last week and told both of us that South Carolina against Tennessee was going to shoot better from the field, have more rebounds, have more steals, force 19 total turnovers. There were a couple other stats that you pointed out that South Carolina won that margin. I think one of them, as you mentioned, was fast break points. Second chance points, did they win that? Or maybe Tennessee won that? There were like 4 or 5 significant categories that South Carolina had the edge over Tennessee and still lost this game.
Tennessee had 11 second chance points. South Carolina had 8. So it's pretty marginal.
Okay, yeah, but so that was marginal. They won fast break points. They won rebounds. They won field goal percentage. They won steals. Again, those open court opportunities when South Carolina can force them are crucial for a team that continues to be just mystifyingly bad in the half court. They won all the margins.
They led more time, too.
They led for more of the game. They won basically everything in the box score that you would want to see them lead. Like, if you just look at the box score, you would probably think that South Carolina won, despite the poor three-point shooting and despite the free throw shooting. Yeah. But it just comes down to timeliness of some of those baskets, of some of those misses, and I guess timeliness of made shots for Tennessee, and you should give them credit for that, because that's another team they've struggled offensively. Their offensive numbers, I think, for the season are generally pretty similar to South Carolina's.
Average. Yeah.
Not great, and they were able to come up with the shots, and that's sort of the benefit of playing at home, and also the benefit of Tennessee just having South Carolina's number. What is it? They've won their last 7?
5 straight.
Or 5 straight? Yeah. So they just have South Carolina's number. But this one, Stetson's awful. Boston's awful. Those are terrible losses. But this is like a different category of bad loss, because
you were in it.
You were right on the cusp, and it's a game that I don't want to say you weren't expected to win, but like you weren't a favorite. Kim Pop said you're going to lose by 9 or whatever. Like, all the predictions said that this is a game that Carolina should lose, and then they should have won it while they're actually in the game. And I think that, I don't want to say it hurts more, but it hurts differently and may ultimately have a greater impact on the rest of South Carolina's season than the Stetson or Boston games.
Yeah, and I think you made up some of that ground with the Virginia win and the Clemson win. So with the Stetson and the Boston. Stetson was a terrible loss, don't get me wrong, but you had 2 good non-conference wins. Again, at 3, I mean, when you look at UMass, on the side note, they're a quad 2 win right now. So losing this Tennessee game, knowing what you have coming up in a top 10 Kentucky team, a Texas A&M team that's shown flashes being pretty good, and Buzz Williams is a good coach, and then number 6 Auburn. You could be 1-4, whereas if you win this game, you're 2-3, at worst, probably. Then your schedule lightens up and things break right. Then you're 10-8, 11-7, and you're right on the cusp of making the NIT. You're right on the cusp of, winning. If you win 1 or 2 games in the NCAA or SEC tournament, you're probably on the bubble to go to the NCAA tournament. So this is a big, because now you have a chance to go 0-5 in SEC play, and you really needed something to go right. We talked about it these first 2 or 3 games just to feel good about your shot the last 15, and you didn't get you got some of that against Tennessee, but a win would have done so much, and it would have helped obviously in the win column because of it.
And I said this at the time, Kentucky's not going to miss the tournament because they lost to Evansville.
Yeah.
South Carolina is not going to miss postseason play because they lost to Stetson. It's going to be because they lose to Tennessee and because they lose to Texas A&M. Because Kentucky's still going to go 14-4 or 15-3 or whatever in the SEC. It's just a numbers game at this point, and when you are that close, and there are so many things that could have made a difference in this game. Again, that's the Florida loss. It's like, yeah, Carolina could have won that game if they played better, and if Florida played a little bit worse, and maybe if Couisnard plays, and maybe if A.J. Lawson shoots a little more efficiently. Like, there's a lot of things, and it's a winnable game, and it's nice that you can sort of glimpse the upside that Carolina can hang with a team like Florida and could be in a position to win that game if they just play a little bit better, hit a few more shots. But ultimately, that's not a game that necessarily hung in the balance. Florida, when it was winning time, Florida pulled away. They won that thing by 13. Let's just talk about it now. I'm glad that we didn't lead with this because I don't think it's the most important takeaway from this game. But you pull down a defensive rebound with about 9 or 10 seconds to go, and you have the last shot, and you're going to have a chance to win it. Maybe at the free throw line, maybe with the 2, maybe with the 3. You have all your options in front of you. And one timeout. And Frank Martin said he told the team in, I don't know, like a timeout at some point.
Yeah, when they were reviewing the off-the-ball thing.
Right, okay,
yeah, that timeout there.
So they were on the sideline, and Frank Martin said, basically, if we get a defensive rebound on this, I'm not going to call a timeout, which makes sense. You and I spend a lot of time talking about how bad South Carolina is in the half court. They're better in transition. It allows their athletes to just go, go, go. The other part of this argument, obviously, A.J. Lawson was the guy that took the last shot. Well, I guess he charged.
Yeah, did not take the last shot.
He didn't get
he had the ball in his
hand.
hands.
He had the ball in his hands last for South Carolina, and I think maybe I was even a more vocal critic than you are, but I think we both agreed in the Stetson game when Frank Martin benched A.J. Lawson for large stretches, you would have liked to just have your theoretical best guy in there. So I'm not even going to complain about the fact that it was A.J. that was supposed to take that last shot or had the ball in his hands last. He was 0 for 7 at that point. You can split hairs. Oh, I would have wanted Couisnard to take it. I would have wanted
that was my
Couisnard
big
to take
thing.
it.
Or I just wanted Couisnard on the court.
Yeah.
He wasn't on the court at that point.
Right. And then, a timeout gives you an opportunity to get that personnel out there, whoever else you want out there. I don't specifically have a problem with Lawson taking that shot.
No.
And I don't even really have a problem with Frank not taking the timeout because, like he said, he's going to let him go. And we have said before, and I still believe that Carolina has a better chance in transition. But when you realize you're not going to get a good look, there's like 4 or 5 seconds, and it looks like AJ's just like,
He went in there 100 miles an hour.
100 miles. I mean, again, I don't want to do too much revisionist history because he prepared the team for what was going to happen. What happened, happened. And if Lawson, makes that little floater and they don't call a charge, because, referees will swallow the whistle sometimes in those late game opportunities, then we're sitting here talking about a good win for South Carolina, 1-1 in the SEC, keeping things afloat and only needing to win basically one of their next 3 games. But should we criticize Frank more for not using that timeout?
I don't think so. Just take it on the surface of you had 6 seconds left, the ball in theoretically your best player's hands, him driving down the lane with a chance to win the game on the road against an SEC team that won the league 2 years ago, with a lot of those pieces returning. You take your chances there. It didn't pay off. Obviously, would I have liked to have seen better execution from A.J. Lawson? Sure. Don't go in there at, going guns blazing, trying to, out of control, and then you have no chance to. He tried to pull up late, and then that didn't work, and execution could have been better, but Mike was coming on the ball screen. I mean, Frank diagrammed it perfectly, I think. If you get stopped, Mike's going to come on the ball screen, it'll free you up, and, kick or whatever you need to do. I had no problem with the last play. It was the missed dunks. It was the missed layups. It was the missed free throws. Those 2 or 3 minutes beforehand where things kind of got away from you. You would have been in a different situation if you had made those, if you had converted your chances before that last 10-second stretch. But no, I don't have any problem with it. I think that you want, on the court at that time was A.J. Lawson, Justin Minaya, Mike Kotsar, Keyshawn Bryant, Jair Bolden. Of those 5 guys, who do you want taking that shot? It's probably going to be either A.J. Lawson or Mike Kotsar.
Yeah.
And
probably Lawson. I mean, Kotsar was 7 of 11, but you just have to do more to manufacture a look for him, where Lawson, he hadn't played well. He hasn't been playing well for most of this season. He's still more, I think, a better option to create a shot.
Yeah, no, and he's probably your best option on the floor right then and there to create a shot, whether that's get to the free throw line, which you did 4 times, He's really good at drawing fouls, which I think he tried to do. Because he kind of lowered the shoulder and then pulled up, thinking he was going to get a foul, and then Fulkerson just, I guess, got there in time.
Who had an awesome game for Tennessee, by the way.
He was great.
He was really good.
He was really great. 15 points, 5 of 7. I mean, he had a double-double. That's beside the point. But you go in and say, if A.J. Lawson has the final shot to win the game on the road against a Tennessee team that's had our number,
you take that.
You take that. And you can debate timeouts all you want to, but then you're going to have to inbound the ball, which they already turned the ball over once on an inbounds play that day. They're going to be playing their man-to-man, so they're going to be already on you. So you're going to have to create a screen or some way to create a shot in 5 seconds or 4 seconds, whatever it's going to be when you call the timeout. So I don't know if that really does you any good service to a team that's already young and already proven they can't execute as well as in the half court as they do in transition.
The only thing that I would push back, because generally I agree with you at the time. It's like, how do you leave that timeout? But then you find out that he told the team he was going to do that. I think that's a really important element of this, by the way.
Yeah. I was confused too. Walking to the meeting room, I'm like, he had a timeout. Like, why not just call that? And the more I thought about it, the more I was like, I understand why you didn't call a timeout.
Well, and it's all about expectations. If your team knows you have a timeout and they think that you're going to call it, and then you don't, that's problematic. But since he basically gave them forewarning, hey, I'm not going to use this timeout, unless something weird happens. Unless maybe you get trapped or something like that.
Yeah.
You're just going to go. And so I think that's good. And I think I don't want to think about this too much, play too much armchair psychologist, but that's probably like a little bit empowering. It's like, okay, get the ball and go. Don't think about it. Don't worry about
just be a basketball
where I'm supposed
player.
To go. Yeah, just go do what I've done for my entire life. The only thing that I would say, just to play devil's advocate, South Carolina's not been good in the half court, but if you're Frank Martin, you've been a basketball coach for a long time. Mm-hmm. You've drawn up a lot of plays. I think maybe you need to be confident in your ability to say, call timeout. We've been bad in the half court. It's hard to spring somebody. We're not a great ball screen team. We're not great at breaking guys down off the dribble. But here we go. I ran this play, 10 years ago at Kansas State, and it was sick, and I haven't run it since. Like, let's do this. Let's get a look. Again, you want to run it for AJ. That gives you an opportunity to put Kusnard in there. As good as Kotsar has been, if you know he's not going to be taking the last shot for you, put Levesque in there. Put McCreary in there, who I thought played well again.
I think so
had
too.
2 consecutive good games now for against Florida and against Tennessee for energy, a big body to maybe give you a different option to screen, and then if you take the shot with like 4 seconds left, give yourself an opportunity for an offensive rebound. Yeah. So you put in Lawson, you put in Kusnar, you put in either Bolden or Hannibal, maybe Bryant or maybe Minaya, and then just one of those big screen guys or an offensive rebounding option. There are a lot of ways that this could have played out. Now that I'm thinking about it, I just want to see what
revisionist history kind of style.
Yeah, but you're down 1 on the road, about to go 0-2 in the SEC. What's the best play you can draw up, Frank?
Yeah,
just kind of like that.
Right. I get that. I get it, but I also the only qualm I have, and it's not really a qualm. It's just what I would have done. Now, granted, I'm not getting paid millions of dollars to coach a basketball team.
Maybe after people hear this podcast.
Yeah,
this Collyn guy's got some great ideas.
I would have, at the time when they were reviewing, I don't know if you can sub at that point, but I don't even know the rules of basketball, and I'm talking. But if you could find a way to get Jermaine in the game, and because he's been so good for you, he had shown a knack of getting to the rim and finishing against Tennessee, and then take out maybe Bolden, who did not have a good game.
Just might not be that good.
Yeah, it's just one of those things where he's shown flashes here and there, but it's all mental for him right now, I think, and that's tough. So I would have taken Bolden out and probably put Jermaine in. Now, granted, that's revisionist history at this point, but at the end of the day, you still got A.J. Lawson one-on-one with a slower player in the lane, trying to get to the line or get a bucket for the win, and I think you can live with that if you're Frank Martin.
It's really unfortunate.
Yeah.
It shouldn't have come down to that.
Correct.
That's the frustrating part.
I think that's the frustrating part because you miss 9 free throws, you miss 11 threes, and you win almost every other category on that. And that's the problem is because if you had told me Friday before the game that South Carolina would have twice as many paint points as Tennessee, I would have said South Carolina won by double digits.
Sure.
But they didn't, and that's the frustrating part because when you look at it, they had, we've talked about it, they shot 7 percentage points better than Tennessee. They didn't make as many free threes, but Tennessee took 31. Free throws, obviously, Tennessee won. They both had the same number of turnovers. South Carolina 3 more points off turnovers, 5 more total rebounds, same amount of defensive rebounds, 5 more offensive rebounds, 3 less second chance points. I think they had, if I'm looking correct, they had 3 times as many bench points as Tennessee, 24 to 8, 28 to 14 in points in the paint, 7 to 3 fast break points. Tennessee had 11 blocks, South Carolina had 8. 12 steals for South Carolina, 5 steals for Tennessee, and then 1 less assist. So we're really talking about, marginal stuff when Tennessee wins it. So South Carolina dominated a lot of these statistics and didn't win, and I think that's the frustrating part for fans, for players, for Frank Martin and that coaching staff, because you're seeing these flashes of being pretty good and playing well in stretches, but they didn't have a field goal the last 2 minutes and 31 seconds. They had a big stretch in the second half where they just couldn't hit anything, and you lose games because of that, and that's what happened again Saturday.
41 minutes, 0 of 12 from the field, 0 of 3 from 3, 2 assists. Good, I don't have the turnovers right in front of me because my browser is condensed. But that's what South Carolina starting backcourt did against Tennessee. Now, A.J. Lawson, he's the starter. He is still the theoretical best player, the player with the most upside, NBA upside. He's certainly not playing like it. If
Correct.
He continues to do this for the rest of the season, he's coming back for a junior year. And I don't even know if Carolina fans will be happy to have him back at that point.
Yeah, it'll be kind of tenuous at that point.
But he's going to be in there. Yeah. He's going to work it out or he's not. That's
and you live or die with the fact that
exactly.
Yeah.
This team lives and dies with how well A.J. Lawson plays. We can talk about how great Kotsar's been. We can talk about Hannibal off the bench, Kusnard off the bench, and the emergence of these young bigs and Levesque and McCreary. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
If A.J. Lawson's not playing well, it's just as simple as that. So I'm going to leave that, and we're going to go to Bolden. 13 minutes this game. He's 4 of his last 22 in the last 3 games. I think it was 0 of 4 against Stetson, 4 of 14 against Florida, and 0 of 5 now against.
Sounds about right.
I mentioned starting lineup changes. He looked a little bit better when South Carolina moved him to a new role, like a little more off the ball, where he wasn't being relied upon to create as much. Does he need another change of scenery? Could he thrive a little bit more? If his 13 minutes a game or 15 minutes a game or 18 minutes a game are maybe less pressure going up against, maybe a backup point guard, a backup 2 guard coming off the bench, do we see his role and Kusnard's role reversed? Or is this a case where I remember when Frank Booker was having that unbelievable season and he was doing it off the bench to start, and then eventually he got shifted into the starting lineup, I was like, oh, man, he's doing it so well coming off the bench. I don't want to mess with the mojo.
Yeah.
Or do you pull the trigger?
I think you put Jermaine Kusnard in the starting lineup. That's me, again, not being paid millions to coach this basketball team. I don't see him every day in practice, but you're not getting a lot from Jair Bolden personality-wise, and Frank Martin said that. You're just not getting the same fire you get from Jermaine Kusnard, or from Jair Bolden that you get with Jermaine Kusnard. And I think a move to the bench would benefit. I think it would benefit both parties because you get that personality in there early with Jermaine. You get Bolden coming in after feeling the game out a little bit, which helped with Frank Booker, which helped with Hassani, which, you had
better for some guys.
Yeah.
Manu Ginobili is a Hall of Famer, and he came off the bench his entire career.
Yeah, and
Jair Bolden's not Manu Ginobili.
No,
let me say that.
No,
but
Frank Martin's had a lot of success with guys with 6 men. You look at Hassani, you look at Frank Booker, you look at Dwayne Otis. That it helps. So I think it would help. I think the offensive flow may be a little bit better with Kusnard running the point, Lawson at 2, and then Benaya, Bryant, and then Kotsar.
An actual true playmaker in there.
Yeah, Kusnard's leading the team in assists. He's 249th in the country right now in assist rate. Turnover rate's still a little high, but you live and die with that because the guy can already he's so natural at making plays that it helps. He needs to shoot better, but when he's your point guard, he's not shooting as much. He's trying to facilitate for others.
And you just need something to grease the wheels at this point.
Oh, absolutely.
And while we're talking about assists, real quick, I just need to mention this because there weren't a ton of positives from this game. Obviously, Mike Kotsar, another nice 17 and 8. He continues to be a positive. We talked, I guess, about the positives of Kusnard and Hannibal. Bryant didn't have a great game, 4 of 12 shooting, 8 points, 6 rebounds. He got blocked Was that Bowden that blocked him?
Yeah. Fouled him, first of all.
Yeah. Amazing block. Like, that was just one of those plays that's like, that's the fun part of watching high-level college basketball or high-level whatever.
Which is two athletes just going at it.
Yeah, so that was awesome. And then obviously got revenge on a huge dunk. It wasn't on Bowden necessarily, but another huge dunk for Bryant.
Yeah.
But best part of Bryant's game, dropped two of the slickest dimes. I never think about him as a playmaker. That's not his first option or his second option. His first option is to dunk on you. His second option is to dunk on you. His third option is to hit that little 15-foot pull-up jumper. But then when he decides,
and the fourth option is dunk on you again.
yeah, exactly. And then the last option is, okay, maybe I'll look to pass this. But when he does, I mean, he's got such a natural feel for the game, and those are some slick passes that he threw.
He has improved a lot since his freshman year, and Frank Martin's talked about it. He needs to play a little bit better, play him a little bit more efficiently, but you've seen the development in him. You've seen and Frank Martin said it, but he's more of a basketball player now than an athlete who plays basketball. And he's dunking the ball well. He's not shooting the ball as well as he needs to, but I mean, he's 9 for 20 in his last 2 games. I think you take that. He's 9 for 20 with, looking at points here, 22 points. Okay. Like, that's Keyshawn Bryant for you.
Yeah. He's averaging 8.5 points a game on the season, 43.5% from the field, 10% from 3.
Yeah,
but he's probably 1 of 10.
Yeah.
Would be my guess on that.
Yeah.
Without having the raw numbers right in front of me. Just a little bit under 3 rebounds, 1.5 assists, almost a block, almost a steal. Like, that's kind of what you expect from him. Like, if he's, you obviously want more from AJ. And so there's like little bits missing here and there from others, because AJ's still averaging 15 points. AJ probably needs to be averaging like 18 points. You're getting almost 9 from Keyshawn. He probably needs to be averaging double digits, like 10, 12, 13, something like that. So it's little bits of margins for each of these guys. But I think, he looks fine. Obviously, he looked good on the dunk that went in. He looked good on the dunk that got blocked. He's had plenty of other flashes since he's been back.
And he just does like the gritty stuff. Like, he had a few putbacks here and there. Like, he just cleans the glass. I mean, he had 5 offensive rebounds.
Yeah, he's an unbelievable rebounder for his position because of his athleticism. He's obviously got those long arms. He can jump out of the gym. I wonder. I think he's healthy, but it's still different. He's only played 7 games.
I would have loved to have seen him without the 6-week layoff.
Right, because again, we see the flashes of it, and I feel like we're making excuses for him now. But it's just his ability to do what he does consistently has still been lacking. He's still had like the high upside moments, the stretches, where he'll play great defense and then go get a dunk or knock down a jumper or whatever. But his ability to do that consistently, I feel like, and we're getting to the point where he should be, and if he hasn't already, like totally worked himself back into shape in the feel of the game. But just that he ebbs and flows a little bit from the games, I think, has a lot to do with the layoff early in the season.
Yeah, and I think that, I mean, you go try, being laid up for 6 weeks and on crutches and not able to do everything, and then try to come back and play high level basketball and play it well. Against guys that are designed to knock your head off when you go into the paint. So you're starting to see the rust come off slowly but surely. Probably not as quick as Frank Martin would have liked, as Keyshawn would have liked, as his fan base would have liked. But, he's being used. You're seeing his usage rate go up a little bit more. It's been over 25% in 4 of the last 5 games, or 3 of the last 4 games. So you're starting to see them trust him a little bit more. You're starting to see him trust himself a little bit more, and he's got a green light. If you see a play to be made, go make a play. And I think as SEC play goes on these next 16 games, you're going to see a little bit more of that.
Next opportunity is Wednesday. Wednesday at 6:30 at the Colonial Life Arena. South Carolina is welcoming Kentucky. 12-3 Kentucky. Really good Kentucky team, not like all-time great Kentucky team. They don't have a Boogie, John Wall.
It's not scattered with
Davis.
Lottery picks or anything like that.
No, I was looking at some NBA draft stuff the other day, and it's like they have 3 guys. It's like Tyrese Maxey, yes. Nick Richards, Higgins. Like working himself in there. Ashton Higgins, but like not a lottery guy is Higgins. Like a late first round, early second round kind of guy so far. And of course, we have the whole rest of the season to change that. What is interesting, and I always like to look at this. I don't think this necessarily means anything. I mean, it obviously doesn't mean anything because it's just a predictor. But ESPN's BPI, they gave Carolina only a 20% chance to beat Tennessee. They gave them a 30% chance to beat Kentucky.
They're at 28 against in KenPom. So
That's so weird. I mean, on the one hand, you say they're playing at home versus playing on the road, but Carolina's played better on the road than they have at home this year.
They're 3-1 on the road this year.
Kentucky's significantly better than Tennessee, so I don't know where exactly that's coming from. I would have expected the line for this to be like 15 or something. But again, it's not like a world-beating Kentucky team, but they're very, very good.
They're very efficient.
Yeah. That's weird. Carolina shouldn't have that much of a chance to win this game. I don't think they do.
It's weird. I think people wrote Kentucky off early in the season after that loss to Evansville. And it's like, oh, this is just a bad Kentucky team. But you look at who they've beaten. I mean, you beat Michigan State to start the year. You beat Georgia Tech, who's not good, but top 100 team. You lose to Ohio State on a neutral floor by 6. But then you beat Louisville, you beat Missouri, you beat Georgia, and you beat Alabama.
That Georgia game was an impressive win.
Yeah, I mean, to come back on the road against some talent like that. And I think that this is, in terms of talent, it's not that, but this is the most cohesive team I remember from Cal in a very long time. Just because, I mean, you look at your starting lineup. Ashton Higgins is a sophomore. Emmanuel Quigley, sophomore. Tyrese Maxey is a freshman. But you got Nate Sestina, however you say it. He's a senior. I believe a grad transfer. And then Nick Richards is a junior. When was the last time you remember having Kentucky having only one freshman in the starting lineup?
2007.
Yeah,
I mean,
like
it's been a while.
yeah. So this is an experienced group compared to obviously teams in the past, but it's veteran in the right ways. You have your point guard that's a sophomore. You have Nick Richards who's playing his way into a very, very good spot, and then Quigley and Maxey are obviously insanely talented Kentucky players to a T. So, this is just one of those teams that they're top 30 pretty much in offensive and defensive efficiency. They play pretty good defense for a Kentucky team. Offensively is not great, but they get to the free throw line. They shoot well from the free throw line, and then they force teams to miss from the field, and that obviously plays into why they've only lost 3 games this year.
Yeah, 3 games. Obviously, the Evansville game, which we mentioned earlier, that was the first big upset of the season in college basketball, and everyone was like, whoa! And then we realized we were going to get one of those every 3 days.
How little we knew. Little we knew at that point.
It's been a weird season. But so there's that game. Obviously, the Ohio State loss, which looks a little bit different now. Ohio State's, they've lost, 3 in a row now?
Something like that.
They've
kind of faltered.
Yeah,
they're 11-5 now and have lost 4 in a row.
4 in a row. Yeah. So that was a good loss at the time, and it's still a good loss. And then their other one was Utah State, maybe.
Utah.
Utah. Yeah.
Probably on par with what
they're 10-5, I think.
10-5, probably on par with what Carolina is right now. They're right around the same Ken Palm numbers wise.
And I think that's what happens when you don't necessarily have the upside that we've seen of Kentucky teams past. And really what they're working with, that 3-headed monster you mentioned quickly, Maxey and Higgins, that's where they make their bread and butter. Nick Richards is a really good player. As we both mentioned, he's someone that's working himself into NBA consideration, having a really, really good season. But I was looking at some bell cows or bellwethers. A bell cow's like a running back. I think a bellwether is the right thing.
There we go.
Looking at some bellwethers for this Kentucky team. So they've won 4 of their last 6 games. In those 4 wins, Emmanuel Quigley has scored at least 16 in all of the wins and has been 16 of 29 from three-point land. And in the 2 losses, just 1 of 9 from 3.
Yeah.
And obviously scoring single digits. So that's one of the things that you look at. Again, it's all about like that 3-headed guard trio. But Kentucky is actually not a great 3-point shooting team.
They're actually pretty mediocre.
Yeah, they're like they're in the mid 200s. Maybe they're shooting about 32%. That's the one thing you look at, because they are, as you mentioned, a decent offensive team. As a team, they're shooting like 46-47% from the field. But that's going to be one area where South Carolina's going to have to be careful.
Yes.
Because, I mean, it sounds stupid. It's like, if a team makes a bunch of threes, they're probably going to win. But breaking news. But it seems this Kentucky team seems to have maybe even a little more reliance on the 3, at least in terms of their offensive productivity, than a lot of other teams. So that's one area. Carolina has played a little more zone lately, which has worked for them because their man hasn't been great. But when you do that, you're leaving some of those corners open, some opportunities. And Tennessee had some opportunities when Carolina was in zone to knock down some of those shots, and they just didn't.
Yeah.
Now Kentucky, again, as a team, not a great 3-point shooting team, only about 32%. But if Quigley or one of these guys gets hot, all of a sudden that's when they start to pile it on. That's when they start to run away. But by and large, at least the last couple of weeks, they haven't been running away from games. They've won, their last 3 now? They've won Are they 3-0 in SEC or 2-0 in SEC?
3-0 in SEC play, but they've won their last 4.
Right. So, yeah, okay, that's right. So, but their 3 SEC wins were by 9, 11, and 9, or 9, 9, and 11.
So they beat Missouri by 12, Georgia by 9, and then Alabama by, it looks like 9.
Yeah.
My math's correct.
So these are convincing wins, not blowouts,
Solid
not runaways.
Yeah.
Solid wins. And again, when you don't have the upside, that's kind of when you're losing the Evansville games, and that's probably what's keeping you from, winning these games that you're winning by 9, by 15, or by 20. So from that perspective, it makes sense. You feel like Carolina's going to be in this game, and they've been in most games. They weren't in the Wichita State game. They weren't in the Houston game. Was it the Wichita State game or the Northern Iowa game?
Northern Iowa they were in. They could have won that game.
Yeah, that's right. So the Wichita State game, the Houston game, pretty much everything else they've been in until the last couple minutes. So I think at least expect that to be the case. And then how much does home court matter? It hasn't been good for Carolina this
Apparently
year.
a lot to Ken Pom.
Yeah, which, maybe that's all they're looking at. I don't know exactly where these metrics come from. And I'd be curious to see Carolina's on-off numbers. But I'm not going to say this is a winnable game, but it's a game that Carolina now kind of has to win.
Yeah, they're in desperation mode because this would be the first time, if they lose, it would be the first time since Martin's second year here where they start 0-3 in SEC play, which is not something you want. If my math's correct, I know I just spoke it into existence, but you need something to go right because you can't go to A&M. You're in desperation mode now, but going to A&M, a very winnable game on the road, needing a win could make you play tight. It's on the road, you never know, and then
a team that has not responded well to adversity anyway this year.
Yeah, and then you come and play at Auburn, you need something good to happen Wednesday against Kentucky.
So desperation mode. You and I teased this out a little bit earlier. It seems pretty likely that we'll see Kusnard in the starting lineup, or at least play. I mean, he's already playing. He played 11 more minutes than Bolden against Tennessee. I think he needs to be in the starting lineup. I think he needs to get more minutes. I wonder, Frank continues to trust Moss, and Moss still played more minutes than Hannibal and continues to be a low-impact player. This is a game where you kind of have to pull out all the stops, and obviously Frank pulling out all the stops is going to look different than my theoretical version of Carolina pulling out all the stops. But you put Kusnard in there. You hope that Bolden is rejuvenated coming off the bench. You let Hannibal play some defense, and you just kind of have to hope that Lawson decides that this is when he wants to
go
get back
for
to being
25
AJ Lawson. Or
6,
is this game on ESPN?
SEC Network.
SEC Network. Okay, so I was hoping if it were a big
ABC game.
Yeah, it is all right, feel me now.
Yeah.
But I guess not because it's just regular SEC Network. I don't know. I don't feel good about this, which is awful because that's me saying that Carolina's basketball season is going to be dead on January 15th.
They'll be 8-8 after 16 games and 0-3 in the SEC.
Is that what's going to happen?
If they lose.
Yeah, but is that gonna? That's what I'm saying. You can't pick Carolina to win this game, right?
No, looking at the numbers, it's hard to pick South Carolina to win this basketball game.
What's it going to take?
It's going to take you playing the same level of defense you played against Tennessee. It's going to look a lot like what that Virginia game looked like. You come out and hit 6 threes, 7 threes, which teams are not really doing. I mean, Kentucky's effective field goal percentage against is really good. Teams are only shooting 29% from 3 against them, which is better than what South Carolina is shooting it from 3 this year.
Progression to the there for South Carolina.
But teams aren't shooting well against Kentucky, so you have to go in there and you have to shoot the ball well. You have to get some points. And you have to get. They're not great. I mean, they're good offensively. They're a top 30, they're 32nd in offensive efficiency, but they don't shoot the 3 all that well. They shoot a lot of them, so it's kind of by volume. But they shoot almost 52% from 2, which is pretty dang good. And then they're top 15 in free throw shooting. So if you go out there and you don't foul, limit their trips to the line, kind of pack the paint, say, no. If you're going to beat us, you're going to beat us hitting threes. Then you feel good about where you are defensively, and then you just have to go out there and score. And playing Kusnard at the point really helps with that. You're going to need to hit some shots. It's not going to be one of those, Kotsar hits 12, 15-footers, and you win because of that. So you're going to need Kusnard and Lawson and Bolden and Mania to be hitting. If they each hit 1 or 2 threes each, you feel like this offense is going to be clicking. And Kentucky doesn't really force a lot of turnovers. They usually kind of just let their defense do its thing and force misses.
It doesn't mean Carolina won't give them some.
Yeah,
They're really good at that.
Carolina has not been great these last few. I think they're averaging 15.7 over their last 3 games turnovers, which, whew.
Not good when you mix it with bad half court. Like I imagine national average is probably like 12, something like that for turnovers a game.
Sounds about right.
So it is high for Carolina, and it's just if you're high and you're like a really high tempo team and you're a really electric scoring offense, if you're if you're running Showtime, it's okay if you have all those, but Carolina doesn't have really that luxury. They're not scoring enough points anyway.
No.
Can Carolina hold Kentucky to fewer than 70?
Sure.
Yeah?
Why not?
Okay.
If you slow the pace down.
I don't think Carolina can score 70 tomorrow.
No, I don't.
So that's going to have to be the formula. And we've said this, I think, every game prediction we've done, and we're probably going to for the rest of the season. You need to win at like 67 to 64.
Yeah, no, you bring them. I hate saying bring them down to your level, but you make them play your style, where it's you slow their offense down, make them eat up a lot of time on the shot clock, and then you run fast and you make sure they can't get set on defense. And if you do that, then you feel good about your chances. But if Kentucky's making shots, it's going to be hard to do.
We talked about Tennessee, and I guess Rick Barnes specifically having South Carolina's number, and I think there's something to that. There seems to be more to that in basketball than just about any other sport, other than maybe baseball when you're looking like a specific pitching matchup or something like that. But it seems to matter a lot in basketball. Kentucky obviously wins the majority of the games they play against South Carolina. But Carolina's had some high-profile upsets of Kentucky. Does that matter in this game?
No, not in this game.
Okay.
If this was 10 years ago. That Devin Downing game was 10 years ago, by the way.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah.
We're old now.
Yeah. So.
Jeez.
Yeah, I know, right? I was like, that was 10 years ago. No, it doesn't matter. This is 2 completely different teams. Weirdly enough, we talk about Rick. Him and Frank obviously go back a ways playing in the Big 12 together. Chuck Martin was actually on staff with Cal at Memphis. So they actually they know each other pretty well in that regard, too. So
basketball's so
interesting.
incestuous.
Interesting. Yeah, it's
and incestuous. It's all the same coaches.
Yes,
and
everyone knows everybody. And it's amazing.
One thing that surprised me in the Tennessee game that better not continue for South Carolina, obviously, as they endeavor to shoot a little bit better. Tennessee was just blocking South Carolina all over the place. So they finished with 11 or 12 blocks. 11 blocks. Unbelievable. Kentucky, I think, is probably middle of the road. They're like fewer than 5 blocks a game, but Tennessee's numbers weren't great anyway.
Yeah, their block percentage is actually pretty good. 13.5.
Kentucky
Yeah, okay. 32nd in the nation.
So, okay, wow. I guess they're just not allowing that many shot attempts then, because it's still like just under 5 blocks a game. Was that an outlier for Carolina, or did you see something that they were doing offensively that allowed Tennessee to get all those opportunities to block shots?
I think they were just driving kind of out of control is not the right word, but they were kind of driving in a way where they would dip, and I mean, you had Bowden and Fulkerson and guys that can get up there near the rim, and when you kind of go up late, and lazy is not the right word, but when you go up a little bit softer than normal when you're not trying to throw down a dunk, then you kind of open yourself up to getting blocked, and that's kind of what happened when you're playing against those kinds of athletes. Yeah. Whew.
Yikes. And Kentucky's obviously got some of those, Nick Richards.
Yeah, a few athletes on that Kentucky team.
I mean, Ashton Hagen's one of the best perimeter defenders in the country. I imagine he's going to be stuck on A.J. Lawson for whenever Lawson's in there, which is going to open everything up for whoever else is. Maybe this is a big Keyshawn Bryant game. It's going to need to be somebody, because if you're Carolina, at this point you kind of have to proceed assuming that A.J. Lawson is going to get you between 8 and 12, not between 18 and 22.
Yeah.
So the Keyshawn Bryant game, the Couisnard game,
Justin
Minaya, yeah. I mean, he's overdue an offensive explosion. He had such a frustrating game against Kentucky. There were, I think, 3 sequences where he did something absolutely boneheaded and stupid, and then immediately followed it up with a really good play. There was right at the end of the half. He had the ball, decided he was going to. They had the last shot.
They had 15 seconds left on the shot clock, or on the clock.
The shot clock was off. The shot clock was off. He decides to drive in. It's a charge. Obviously, cost Carolina the last possession. Cost himself a foul. It's a turnover. It's like every single thing bad. And if he were a freshman, Frank Martin might have actually gone like God of War and ripped his head off, ripped his eyeballs out. But it's Justin Minaya, so I guess he took it a little bit easier on him. But then right on the other side, Tennessee gets the last shot and comes up with a huge block. He did it again later in the second half. He pulls down a defensive rebound, tries to pass it ahead to Lawson or Couisnard or somebody trailing out, and tries to throw it over a Tennessee defender. Tennessee defender jumps up and just snags the ball, and you're like, okay, You just got a good rebound, and then you immediately turn it over, and then he blocks it
and
again.
then he gets posted up and blocked. Yeah.
Yeah.
He held in like 10 defensive rebounds. I mean, it was...
He had a good defensive
He had a
game.
weird game. It was probably his best defensive game of the year.
But he kept putting himself in bad positions.
Yeah, I mean...
And it's sort of like intentionally missing a shot just so he can get the rebound. It's like, do we really give him credit for those blocks when all the turnovers that led to him blocking those shots were his fault?
I'm trying to look. He had 3 blocks, 2 steals, 10 defensive rebounds, 3 turnovers, and went 0 for 4 from the field.
That sounds about right.
With 4 fouls.
So, again, he's not someone that you necessarily are going to count on, but if he can give you 10.
Yeah, no, that's all you need from him.
Just hit a couple of threes.
Just 6 and 8 every night from him is what you need, and he's giving that in spurts. He'll score 6 points and then give you 2 rebounds, or he'll give you 10 rebounds like he did and go 0 for 4 from the field. So it's just one of those weird... Because he's got talent.
Yeah.
He's a really good player, but...
It's just consistency all across the board.
Yeah, I think if there's one word to describe this team right now, it's inconsistent.
The only person that's been consistent this year is Mike Kotsar. And he's now... I mean, he was averaging like 9.5 and 6, I think, headed into SEC play. And he's up to, what, like probably 12 and 7 or 12 and 7.5? Like,
yeah, I mean, it's... Let's see. Michael Kotsar. I don't know if Michael's is that. He's averaging 10.7 points and 6.3 rebounds.
Okay, so it hasn't gone up that much. But 18 and 10 against Florida and 17 and 8 against Tennessee. He's a rock.
Yeah.
I don't think it's Michael because it's M-A-I-K. Unless it's like
that would be kind of cool though, right?
M-A-I-K-A-L or something.
Yeah, no, I like it though.
M-A-I-K-Y-L.
It sounds so like it sounds so like formal too.
Yeah, Michael Kotsar. When's the next time you're going to get to talk to him?
Hopefully after the Kentucky game when he goes for like 20 and 10.
Okay. So they've already done their media availability for this week?
Yeah, we got T.J. Moss and who else did we talk to? Justin Minaya this week.
Did you ask T.J. Moss why he doesn't shoot?
I did not ask T.J. Moss.
You shouldn't ask that because you don't want him to shoot more because he's a bad shooter.
It would be interesting.
14 to 53 from the field for the season, but it's amazing. He's allergic to field goal attempts.
And he had a bad turnover against Tennessee. Mm-hmm. I hate piling on kids because they're 19 years old, but he went into the game in the second half and the crowd was into it and he just threw the ball out of bounds to Wilden's back. Yep. And you're like, and Wilden's is standing there like, come on, like it was just that was part of that gunky like 7-minute stretch where they couldn't get anything to go right.
And it's not piling on. I feel bad for him. He doesn't need to be out there. He's just not. He's not playing well enough to be playing 15 minutes a game in SEC play.
No, and he just turns the ball over a little bit too much. And I think he's averaging 2 turnovers a game.
Nah, he's probably averaging
1.3 turnovers a game.
Okay,
sorry,
yeah, and he's probably averaging like 1.5 or 2 assists, and so you can
1.8 assists.
Yeah, so you can look at that and be like, oh, well, actually, but it's like just watch the game. It's just
but
he
he's
just
shooting.
Doesn't make that much of an impact.
He's shooting 26.4% from the field, 30% from 2.
Not great. I think he has 38 points this year, and I think Trey Hannibal has played half as many minutes and also has 38 points.
38 points, yes.
Yeah. Yikes. All right, South Carolina's playing Tennessee tomorrow, 6:30, Colonial
Kentucky.
Life Arena.
Playing Kentucky.
What did I say?
Tennessee.
We've been talking about Tennessee so much.
Yeah,
But they're not playing Tennessee again. That's not until
February.
Yeah, February. Yeah, Tennessee, Mississippi State, Vanderbilt, Texas A&M, and Georgia. Yeah, those are the 2. Yep. That's good. That's exactly what
we've
you
talked
need.
about that.
Mississippi State, Vanderbilt, Texas A&M. That's what you want.
Yep.
Georgia still scares you a little bit, although
with talent.
Did that Georgia Auburn game tell you more about Auburn or Georgia?
Gotta tell me more about Auburn. Auburn's
good. They're by 20 points at halftime. Yikes.
Yeah, Auburn's good.
Carolina's going to get to see that up close in person very soon. But first is going to be Kentucky. Again, you and I cannot in good faith predict a win. A lot of things. This is kind of like I don't want to say it's kind of like the Florida game because Kentucky's better than Florida, but it is like the Florida game in that if all of Carolina's pieces play as well as possible, if A.J. Lawson plays like A.J. Lawson of old, if Keyshawn Bryant has a couple big dunks, blocks, good rebounds, Minaya hits a couple threes, they can be in this thing. But it needs to be that. And you probably need some help from the crowd.
Yes.
Buy some beers.
Yes.
Be loud. You can do that.
Heckle Doug Shows, yeah.
Yes, exactly. We don't make predictions on this show. Our reverse jinxes have been bad. Do you still want to keep doing that? We can.
Let's try it one more time. Let's try it. Let's give one more.
Okay.
Go around. See.
All right. I think we're gonna reverse jinx the same person.
After you, sir.
Yeah, that's it. 3, 2, 1. 3.
That was bad. Okay.
All right. Yeah, I was gonna Justin.
Yeah, Justin Minaya.
Yeah.
I didn't know we were gonna count down there.
Give Justin Minaya 12 and 8. Mike Kotsar is gonna give you 14 and 6. AJ Lawson gives you 18, 4 assists. He plays his first game this season without turnovers. I don't know that to be the case. He may have had a turnover-free game this year. I just can't imagine based on the way that he plays.
It does not feel like it at this point.
Doesn't seem like it. Hey, do you have really quick access to those lineup numbers you were looking at for other teams, or did you just have them for Carolina?
I'm for other teams.
Okay, I wrote this down because I was curious. I've watched a little bit of Kentucky this year, but don't know how many minutes they play with Maxey, Hagans, and Quickly on the floor together, those three guards.
So it looks like, a lot. Their top three, their top three lineups have them at the guard spots.
I thought so.
One's 18.7, one's 16.7%, and one's 11.4%.
Okay,
so
it's going to be a lot of those. So
you're seeing a lot of that.
This is going to be a lot of Minaya. It's not going to be a lot of McCreary or a lot of Leveck, I would guess, because I think Carolina's going to have to play a lot of 4-out just to match up with all those guards.
Now, if they get in some foul trouble early, that certainly benefits South Carolina.
Right. Now, I guess the flip side of that is, could Carolina go big to try to combat that? And I would say
you could.
You could.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, as mobile as Kotsar is on the perimeter, you can let him guard those fours and then just kind of play everybody down, and then whatever other traditional big, obviously you're playing center as opposed to having Kotsar at center. That just does scare you with a team that shoots as many threes as Kentucky does.
And Kentucky's very drive and kick. So if you can pack the paint and force some turnovers down low to where they can't really kick, then that's good for you. But
tall task.
Yeah,
tall task.
Easier said than done.
And it's kind of a shame because you feel pretty good about Carolina's big rotation now.
Yeah.
If you're including Justin Minaya, because obviously he plays most of his minutes at the four. Minaya defensively, Kotsar defensively. Leveck, I think, is having a solid freshman season.
Mm-hmm.
Not spectacular or anything, but about as well as you could have reasonably expected. And then, like we said earlier, McCreary, after not playing since the Houston game, played well against Florida and played well again in some 11 minutes against Tennessee. I just like his energy.
Yeah, he doesn't give you. I mean, he's one of those kind of weird. Still doesn't know what he's doing half the damn time out there, but he plays well, gives you some energy off of it, and you get some production from him.
Rebounds, block shots. It's it's all right. So I'll be very curious to see what the strategy is. This is a kitchen sink game for sure. 6:30 tip tomorrow on the SEC Network. You can also listen airtime on 107.5 The Game 6 o'clock if you want to listen to South Carolina and Kentucky. Collyn and I will be back on Thursday to discuss whatever happens in this Kentucky game and what South Carolina will be facing this weekend. They're going to College Station, right?
Yeah.
Okay, and then Auburn next Wednesday.
Yeah, at Auburn.
Right. Yeah, so, or who knows, maybe we won't be back because the college basketball season for South Carolina will end tomorrow night at approximately 9 o'clock, but no, that's not true. Either way, we'll be back. We're casting our reverse jinx for this game on Justin Minaya. Hopefully that goes a little bit better than our reverse jinxes have been going, and Jair Bolden's shooting has been going. Oof. Who knows? Oof. Stranger things have happened. I think it was a bigger surprise when Carolina, even though they had Devin Downey, upset Kentucky 10 years ago this season.
Feel old.
All right, for Collyn, I'm Pearson. Thank you all so much for listening. Don't forget to rate, review, subscribe to all the great stuff on the Gamecock Central Podcast Network and other Carolina podcasts with Wes Mitchell, Chris Clark, and myself. Back tomorrow. A lot of staff changes for South Carolina in the last week, plus the college football national championship. So if you don't want to miss that, be sure to subscribe to the Gamecock Central Podcast Network. Thank you all again so much for listening. We will talk to you on Thursday.